The Green Hospital brings together ecological strategy and economic common sense. That has lots to do with energy, but not only energy, because then Asklepios would be the wrong address. Instead, the Green Hospital has lots to do with the Asklepios Future Hospital Project, AFH. It's strategic for us and for our project partner, GE. GE and Asklepios have decided to cooperate, not only in achieving, but actually surpassing the benchmarks set out by the European Union. We intend to raise power generation effectiveness by 30%, to reduce energy consumption of our hospitals by 30%, and to expand the amount of renewable energy in our energy mix, again by 30%. As you probably know from having read it in the paper, the EU only calls for a 20% reduction in these areas, so we are ahead of state-sponsored energy goals by at least 10%.
20% mehr erneuerbare Energien einsetzen. Also, wir sind hier, wenn Sie so wollen, noch mal deutlich darüber hinausgegangen. Wir haben uns lange überlegt, ob das...
We thought long and hard about whether this is feasible. Let me sum up. Right now, we're in the development phase. In strategic terms, that's our development phase 2. As part of our preliminary design, we have conducted plausibility studies that strongly indicate a very good chance of reaching our goals. Hamburg-Harburg is our pilot project. The clinic center there is well suited because lots of rebuilding or new building is necessary there. By meeting the goals set out for our project, we will be saving up to 4,000 tons of CO2, while simultaneously increasing our floor space by 38%. The clinic center is growing fast, but this won't stop us from reaching our target. The reduction is equivalent to taking 1,300 mid-sized automobiles off the streets for 1 year, or to planting 400 hectares of new forest.
Ich meine, für ein einziges Krankenhaus ganz eindrucksvolle Werte.
Not bad for a single hospital, wouldn't you say?
Weitergesponnen, und zwar im Begriff oder in aller Munde ist der Begriff momentan.
I know some people would rather talk about mega projects, such as sustainable cities, but we Asklepios like to take one step at a time.
Wir machen erstmal den ersten Schritt und dann reden wir über das Ganze.
So how will we proceed? For starters, we came up with an integrated approach based on 8 key elements. These are energy production, energy conservation, energy recovery, intelligent consumption, building and medical technology, architecture, water purification, and waste avoidance. Each of these elements is closely linked to all the others. This kind of interdisciplinary thinking is rather new. It is also unique, and we expect to see big cumulative effects. We don't fancy doing a little photovoltaics here and a little water savings there. We see these things as interdependent.
Sondern wir betrachten das interdependent.
The 8-layer model we created for this project clearly demonstrates the interdependent connections between modules and measures in different areas.
Modulen zu Maßnahmebereichen dargestellt sind. Hier mal.
Each layer is distinct, but since everything is connected, it effectively forms a cybernetic model of interaction.
Wie gesagt, es ist ein kybernetisches Modell, alles ist miteinander und untereinander verknüpft.
For instance, let's take a look at energy production. Energy is produced in different ways, and these are also interconnected. At the top, we see solar energy, at the bottom, geothermal storage. We also employ commonly used technologies like combined heat and power, CHP. In our case, involving biogas. But in fact, all of the elements displayed here work together to generate all the energy we need for power, heating, and cooling. This means that we can choose to employ both old and new technologies, whichever fits best. The Lockheed Powerhouse gas turbine used in our pilot project at the Hamburg hospital is a good example. It allows us to increase efficiency from 89 to 97%. We all know that creating greater energy efficiency in cars, for instance, is a big challenge. And the hardest part is always getting those last couple of percentage points right. The gain we have achieved in efficiency means that we can do more with less. The turbine engine we used is 22% smaller and lighter than we would have needed otherwise. It runs 100% on environmentally clean biogas. Another idea we borrowed for the AFH concept. AFH is all about partnerships. The biogas example is a good case in point, since it's produced by local partners.
Solche Biogasenergieanlagen errichtet in naher Zukunft mit einbinden. Nächstes Beispiel im
Next, take the car park as an example. The garage complex will be completely covered with photovoltaic cells. The same goes for the patient tract.
Die Fassade des Bettenhauses mit Photovoltaikelementen belegt. Hier vielleicht,
Let's take a closer look to see how things interconnect here.
wenn man die Dinge interdependent betrachtet, wir erreichen mit diesen Photovoltaik
By itself, photovoltaic can only contribute 0.3% of all energy the hospital needs.
aber
But it can handle up to 60% of peak demand. And as everyone knows, satisfying peak demand is the most costly.
und das ist eigentlich der ökonomische Effekt, denn Sie wissen es aus Ihren eigenen Stromrechnungen, die Spitzenlast ist die teuerste Last. Also auch
This clearly shows how meeting ecological and economic concerns fit together.
Energiekonzept, Oberfläche
Now let's look at what we call our surface-based geothermal storage concept.
steht in Harburg.
Most of Hamburg and Harburg both stand on river sand. And as we all know, building on sand is not a very good idea.
Das Krankenhaus
However, for the Hamburg-Harburg hospital, we simply didn't have a choice.
unterbringen. So muss man
To anchor the hospital, we had to drill down deep.
hier im Übrigen auch. Und das nutzen wir.
And while we were there, we decided to use these pilings to provide geothermal energy as well as for storing energy when we don't need it. That means that in winter we can use geothermal energy saved up from summer to heat the hospital.
Die Wärme
And in summer, we can send heat into the ground in order to cool the rooms.
kühlen. Nächster Punkt im Energiebereich.
The next point is energy management.
Das ganze System
This only works if you can centrally manage all the different systems. Remember when we talked about automobiles? There would be no hybrid car without a thing called the hybrid manager. You would wind up with two completely different systems in the same car, both of them costing energy, but neither bringing you a step closer to your goal.
vorwärts bringen. Dieses Energiemanagementsystem ist
The energy management system is able to monitor, analyze, administer, and keep track of everything that goes on.
Es findet eine Steuerung statt und schließlich findet das Reporting statt. Auch hier wieder
Here again, we followed the model set out by the AFH.
kann auch
Reporting is consolidated and centralized.
folgen. Das kann also im Prinzip von einer Leitstelle,
Here you can see our employee, Mr. Focke, sitting in his chair in a control center. He's the one who decides how hot or cold each room gets to be.
nächster Punkt,
Now let's look at water and air conditioning.
Raumlufttechnik. Wasser- und Raumlufttechnik,
There's no single solution here.
unterschiedliche Ansätze.
Depending on region and climate, you may have to choose between very different technologies.
Klimaten, aber in anderen Klimaten
In warmer areas, say in Saudi Arabia, you might want to consider something as novel as membrane bioreactors.
aber in unseren
Here in the north, where it's a lot colder, water recycling for cooling, laboratories, and outside irrigation along with heat recovery from condensers and wastewater, are an interesting alternative. Water is always a touchy issue in hospitals where safety and hygiene are crucial.
Alles vermeiden müssen, hygienische Gaus zu erzeugen. Wichtig, der Bereich der
Air conditioning is also an important factor. It all starts with how you build the hospital complex in the first place, taking natural factors such as terrain and sunlight into consideration. Second, you can make the ceilings part of your air conditioner system by cooling them down at nights, keeping temperatures lower during the day and cooling the rooms with cold air produced by nature.
sich aufplustern zu lassen.
Moving on, let's look at lighting. Here again, there are many paths you could follow. The trick is finding the right one. This timeline shows that today, in 2009, LED technology is your best shot. But by the time the Harburg Hospital is finished in 2013, there may very well be other ways to light it up.
Pilotprojektes, aber in die Phase 2012, 2013 hinein. Und da kommen für uns
Let me just demonstrate two very innovative new concepts.
mal beleuchten. Und zwar einmal das Solar.
The first is called solar hybrid lighting. Big mirrors on the top of the building catch the sunlight, sending it through fiber optic cables to illuminate the rooms.
Dieser Lichtwellenleiter ist angeschlossen an einen
This is not only a smart idea energy-wise,
und wir fangen damit Tageslicht ein. Tageslicht, das ist in verschiedenen Untersuchungen
studies show that daylight is very important for helping patients recover.
und ist durchaus in seinem Licht.
And besides, it's way more convenient than artificial lighting.
Im Jahr 2012
The second concept that will presumably be ready by 2012 is called OLED illumination. OLED stands for organic light-emitting diodes, which essentially are thin foils that can be pinned to walls and ceilings to collect diffuse light within the rooms and send it back when it is needed.
diffuses Licht aufnehmen und wieder abgeben. Auch hier wieder das
Again, the Asklepios Future Hospital is where we got the idea.
Wir werden hier mit Partnern gemeinsam eine Entwicklung vorantreiben, wo wir bestimmte
There we have partners helping us create these OLED foils and use them wherever we need them.
auf der einen